And thank you for joining us here on PM Express. It's a big day. It's an opportunity in a year for a finance minister to give us an account of what has happened in the last 6 months, if you may. They call it the mid-year budget review. Dead center, but it takes on an added significance when it has to do with a new government. It is the first time we get an opportunity to assess with the numbers and the data how the first 6 months of a new government had gone. And often sometimes you begin to see where the cracks are and the challenges are. Also get to see whether or not the path towards economic recovery or takeoff, regardless of where the economy was coming from, whether the path is clear. Today, the current finance minister was in Parliament to do just that. He has been implementing policies over the last 6 months, and he gave us an account of what has happened, but also gave us a path to the future. He was accused of not spending, for which reason his critics said, well, that's why the Cedi was doing well, you're not spending yet, and if you're not spending, you can't expect that the economy will begin to even heat or overheat, and so, you know, they can't really brag too much. And so he went there to show us what he's done with the mandate that we gave him, but also a few things that he was again criticized for. When we had the first budget read for 2025, they said, but you promised that the COVID levy will go. And then he said it was the VAT reforms. And so this was an opportunity to tell us what's the update on that. So big ticket items. And I know many of you are just relaxing tonight, trying to catch up on what really was said. I promise you, there are a lot of things that were said that would affect you directly. Big push, roads, infrastructure. There's a corridor of road that I know I'll be driving on that it's in there that I saw. So everything is about what's in it for you. And that is why we're here tonight with a special edition of PM Express. And I'm delighted to say that the finance minister is my guest on the show to answer your questions, if you have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Evans.
Thank you. Grateful that you could make time to. I know you've been very busy day, very busy day. When the budget is read, either the mid-year or the main budget, it's always a day for you to be plenty issues to deal with, even post the budget. And so delighted that you can make time to answer a few questions.
Thanks for having me. Because
of where the economy is also, people want to know what the path is going forward. And I want to start with how you started today. You talk about optimism. I mean, and these are, in essence, slides that was the bedrock of what you did today. That you are before Parliament with due sense of duty and optimism. 6 months on, you're already sounding very optimistic. But I remember very well that night, same show, when you were here, you did something that had not been done before. You went to the marketplace to try and get a sense of where the economy, the real economy, is. At that time, I didn't get the sense that you got a sense that people shared any sense of optimism at the time. There was a bit of uncertainty because we were about to hear your budget. There was a woman, I believe, who captures the mood at the time of the economy that confronted you. I want us to watch that.
Yeah, my first problem this year means me brand track.
What is the problem?
The problem was the price has increased. It was 1,350, but now it is 1,750. Just 3 weeks.
Just 3 weeks?
Yes.
From 1,350?
Yes, 2,750.
2,750.
So I was returning back.
Oh, wow.
Now the price I gave it to them over there, and now that it has increased about double, I can't afford that.
1,350 to 1,750, and I remember this because of your reaction. You said, wow.
I said, oh, wow. Oh. I was really amazed, to be honest.
Exactly. And then you read the budget, and then you were hoping that you could deliver on this woman's pain and fix it for her. Would you say 6 months on, you have dealt with that? You have dealt with her pain?
Evans, let me first say that I think it was good that I went to the market. And oftentimes, you know, men, we hardly go to the market and all. But I was indeed confronted with the true state of the Ghanaian people, particularly their livelihood and how they have to battle with price increases day in, day out. Even though I've always been aware that inflation at a high level is on the upsurge, and I've always wished to get an opportunity to be able to do something about inflation. But going to the market provided me another perspective. I could actually compare prices. And that particular video that you made reference to, the lady said to me that she came all the way from Praso, the central region. Strangely, my region.
Okay.
And she came prepared to buy cooking utensils at a particular price because it was only 3 weeks that she purchased one, only to come to the market and realize that her working capital isn't enough. I felt that the time has come for us to confront that challenge for the ordinary Ghanaian once and for all. And so I was once shocked, but most importantly, I felt challenged. I felt that someone somewhere must stand up for the people of Ghana. And so leaving the market, I said to myself that whatever it takes, we need to rescue this situation. We need to serve our people to their benefit. And so I've been guided by that. Lucky enough, His Excellency the President shares the same sentiment. And so he could anchor the reset, the economic reset that we began. It has only been 6 months on since I took office and since President Mahama became the President of Ghana. But let me say for the record, we are not saying that we are out of the woods.
And I heard you make that point
but
today.
We have made considerable progress. I mean, in fact, significant progress. We are at a place that we believe that hope is in sight.
Okay.
I won't come and say we've turned the corner. It would be very dishonest for me to say that. I don't want to say that. I want to say that we are not out of the woods, but hope is in sight. I believe that where we are now, things are pointing to the right direction.
Okay.
And with the right determination and focus, we'll be able to actually weather the storm and take the country out of this terrible situation.
And I'll get into the data pretty shortly and see how specifically you've addressed a woman's pain. But to appreciate what you had to deal with, today what you did was to now give us a sense of where we are coming from.
Exactly.
A few things that you told us today, that you have fiscal imbalances, huge ministry department agencies, arrears, massive debts, weakening institutions, heightened public anxiety. It was things to do with the debt in the cocoa and energy sectors in particular pose a significant fiscal risk. You also highlighted the public trust was completely gone. The budget deficit had ballooned. Indebtedness of government had culminated in state insolvency. You paint the picture that we're facing an apocalypse.
But in honesty, and I'm not the one saying, the numbers are saying it. And in fact, the people of Ghana agrees with me that as of December 2024, the situation was really dire. In fact, I was amazed when I became the minister and got to the ministry and saw the numbers. And I remember my first brief to the president. The president was really shocked. He says, this is the situation. This is where we are. In fact, the situation was far worse than what we had imagined. Far worse than what we had imagined. I remember when the IMF mission came first and saw the numbers, and you could see the state of the economy. They were shocked at what the MPP have left behind.
You quoted this today.
Yes.
The program had deviated substantially from its targets by close. This is a quote from the IMF
and this
program?
is a quote from the IMF press release on the day that the IMF board approved Ghana's program. And the date was on the 7th of July, 2025. And this is what the Deputy Managing Director, Mr. Boli, had to say. And he said that the program had deviated substantially from its target by the close of 2024. Deviated substantially. IMF, you know, is a diplomatic institution. For them to use those words, it tells a story. A story that the program, as inherited, was so bad that it nearly derailed Ghana's economic progress.
But it is also true that, yes, there was a crisis, but they started the recovery, put in place measures, policies that laid a foundation for a certain gradual takeoff, which you are benefiting from.
I don't know of one. I don't know of one. They may have started, but had never yielded results. And in fact, I don't know one that they meant well by starting. They meant, yes, we have to do it because we're an IMF program. So they were doing it wishy-washy. So nothing really actually materialized from whatever program they were implementing.
One for me stands out. At least they left you 4 months of impact cover.
Okay.
We had eroded, at one point, we actually had gone 2 months even less, and we're in the red territory. Isn't that at
But
least?
It could have been better. It could have been better. We have used the last 6 months to accumulate additional reserve worth 2.1 billion US dollars. 2.1. If we have used 6 months to accumulate that kind of reserves, and you were sitting there for how many years under the IMF program? So give and take, I'm not impressed. I have never been impressed with the economic performance because they could have done better than what we inherited. And
also the debt situation, you given us a sense of what you meant, the steep debt repayment humps in 2026, 2027. This, in fact, today a friend of mine was making a point that last year when we're looking forward to this year, everybody looked forward to 2026 with a sense of trepidation because of the deferred pain. I think it was called at the time. We deferred the pain to 2026, 27, 28. So this year was supposed to be a very difficult year for you, whoever won the elections.
Yes.
But you are giving us a different view that you somehow, what was supposed to be a very difficult year for anybody, you sort of says that you've actually found a way to turn that into an opportunity.
Exactly. Exactly. Because, let me say, Evans, we have always been aware that 2026 in particular was going to be a difficult year. So within us as NDC, we had done our analysis, we have remodeled, and we know exactly what we were going to do. This year has been very difficult. Maybe we are not saying it, but it has been difficult for us with economic managers. It's only that we are focused and we are dealing with the situation one by one. For example, we inherited Eurobonds bullet payment that has to be paid. Number two, we inherited bullet payment, Eurobond, DDEP bullet payment that has to be paid. We've paid one. That's another one due. For example, on the 18th of August, we have to pay 10 billion Ghana cedis worth of DDEP bonds that has to be paid. And we have planned around it. In fact, as we speak, we've set a sinking fund. We have enough buffers, and we are ready to pay that particular DDEP when it falls due. But as I've said, 2027, 2026, you have 20 billion Ghana cedis worth of DDEP payment, DDEP payment that you have to pay. 2027, 50.3 billion cedis to be paid in 2 tranches, 25 in 1 year, then 45.8 billion cedis for 2028. As if this is not enough, you have other bonds you have to pay. Eurobond payment in excess of $1 billion US dollars each year, 2027, 2026, 2027, and 2028. But all said and done, we have instituted an important debt management tool to be able to do this. And if you go into the notes today, we've said that we have set up a special sinking fund. And that sinking fund is targeting this particular bonds where we're going to build cash buffers to be able to buy them back, or enough cash balances to be able to pay this debt as and when they fall due, so that you won't wake up one morning and you see this debt falling due and you do not have.
But keeping them honest, isn't it also because of the debt restructuring they did that had given you a bit of headroom to do the things you're doing right now that is moving positive?
First of all, one, the debt restructuring for me was well structured, very bad structured. Let me put it this way, very bad structured. Very bad structured in the sense that why do you restructure your debt and create such a hump? Are you setting someone up to fail? No one restructure a debt like this, because restructuring a debt by creating this kind of humps can be cancerous. It can set the country back to another economic disaster like we saw in 2022. And so the debt restructuring that they did, for me, I can't give them credit for it. In fact, a debt restructuring to the extent that you denied pensioners of their savings and their dignity cannot be said to be a good debt restructuring. I mean, why is it that government of Ghana should have gone into debt restructuring? It was avoidable in the first place. It was avoidable in the first place. It is because they borrowed and borrowed until Ghana could not pay a debt. They borrowed and borrowed until the needs of the citizens and then the needs of the creditors collided. That is not the kind of government we want to.
Do you have this to pay? 2027, 50 billion?
I said we have begun.
The sinking fund?
Yes, from August this year.
Okay.
We'll begin building buffers to be able to take off
that?
the 2026, 2027, and 2028.
Okay.
So by the time the debt repayment will fall due in 2026, we'll have 20 billion.
To clear that?
To clear that debt.
Okay. Now, and then you give us a sense of what the root causes are. And the economic crisis can be traced directly to the overbearing fiscal dominance market by reckless spending, corruption, compounded by poor leadership of the previous administration. Western fiscal situation spilled over into the monetary, external sectors. But they will tell you that they had a pandemic. That's a reality. You didn't mention it at all, but in economic terms, the entire globe faced that challenge. And then you have Ukraine also.
But the entire globe, I don't know of anywhere after the pandemic gave their citizens a haircut. I don't know of any country after the pandemic that gave their citizens a haircut.
On the domestic front?
On the domestic front. I don't know of anyone after the pandemic that restructured a debt. It is only Ghana. So it means Ghana was an outlier. I don't know of any country that during the pandemic, their fiscal deficit was about 17%. I don't know of one. So they hid behind the pandemic and borrowed as if there was no tomorrow. That was what they did. And it was obvious. And you can see from the numbers. They only hid behind the pandemic. So what we saw in 2022 was indeed self-inflicted.
So let's now talk about what you then told the people today about how you've set about trying to fix a problem. You give us two main things you've done. You said we tighten fiscal discipline without compromising social investment. How do you balance that?
Okay. I think it's very easy. It's about priorities. You set your priorities right. For example, we have said that we are going to reduce waste or cut waste. And we have indeed cut waste. You could see clearly that waste has no space in President Mohamed's administration. And so by doing that alone, we are able to make allocation for social investment.
Which particular areas are you cutting?
Okay, so we are cutting waste in the form of, for example, goods and services in areas that we think are not necessary.
Okay.
We are actually awarding contracts based on proper contract preparation and proper pricing. Instead of, for example, the big push has been properly prepared. The Minister of Roads went around the country with his engineers, with his QS and all. They came back and costed the project properly before they give to contractors. In the past, contractors will price themselves. And maybe it's a contractor pricing as against the government pricing. The contractor will price in a way that the contractor will benefit. And so prices of certain contracts were higher than expected. And so in the end, government was losing money. The fiscal discipline bit, let me say that this particular government, year to date, has been extremely disciplined. We've been extremely disciplined in the sense that we are sticking to our budget targets. We are doing exactly what we've said we will do, and we are respecting our budget lines. And so in doing that, we've been disciplined. If it's not in the budget, it has no space. And that is what we've been communicating all year round. And we want to assure the people of Ghana that this discipline will continue into the foreseeable.
That is a big unknown, right? Because all governments, when they start sometimes very well.
I'm using this opportunity to assure you that the people of Ghana and the people of Ghana, that President Mohamed's administration will be disciplined when it comes to the fiscal.
And you've chosen to then spend on a few areas: education, health, agriculture, infrastructure, and employment. We're going to talk a lot about infrastructure because today you did something pretty daring in terms of you're putting almost all your eggs in the next 2 years when it comes to big push in the basket of roads, not even infrastructure, just roads. We'll talk about why that is. But aren't you spread too thinly because you're doing education, health, agriculture, infrastructure, employment? You must, out of this, what is the biggest priority?
You know, we are doing a lot in education.
Yeah.
Okay, we are doing a lot in healthcare. For example, you can see the investment we've made in the national health insurance, for example. The health budget has increased. Mahama Cares is on board, and we are actually going to even invest more in 2026 in education and healthcare. Agriculture, we have a program called the Agriculture for Economic Transformation Program. Mm-hmm. It has started. In 2026, we are going to even do more. Infrastructure, we have actually ring-fenced the big push for road infrastructure.
We'll come to that. That for me is a place we'll spend some time. Okay. And you're talking about employment.
Employment. So as I said, the next budget will be very much focused on employment. What we needed to do now is to lay the foundation for businesses to survive. When businesses survive, they will create employment themselves. And that's what we are doing now. Going into the 2026 budget, I'll be very heavy on employment generation. Employment generation.
What exactly do you do or do you plan to do to fix that employment?
I wish you wait for the 2027 budget.
So that is something that you're planning to do? Okay. Let's look at some of the indicators on the back of last six months. You talk about a few things. Ghana's fiscal position has significantly improved. You talk about the primary balance on commitment basis now posted surplus of 1.1% of GDP. Overall fiscal deficit on a commitment basis also 0.7%. Inflation has reduced, and these are okay, but because this affects a lot more people, I want to focus there a bit. The inflation one, your target is 11.9, I believe, towards the end of the year. Isn't it a bit under sort of stating what you can really do so that you can achieve the target and say you really take the mark? Considering where we are now with 6 months to go,
Evans,
you should do better than 11.9.
When we began the year, inflation was 23.8, and I projected 11.9. Most people said, how can he do it? Today it's 13.7. I said today that I believe that inflation will achieve our target maybe ahead of target.
Okay. Ahead of schedule.
Okay. And so we have planned that we are going to achieve inflation of 11.9%. 12% by the end of December.
Because it's from 23.8 to 13.7 in 6 months.
Correct.
If you're continuing, holding everything constant, you're continuing this trajectory, you should definitely do far better than 11.
I am of the firm belief that by the end of the year, we'll be entering the single digit.
Okay.
We'll be entering the single digit.
Because many have predicted that it's only in 2026 that you can expect that to happen.
I expect that by the end of the year, we'll be entering the single digit for a reason. Based on the trajectory, as you have actually mentioned, we are now at 13.7. The producer price inflation, for example, moved from 10-point-something to 5.9 last month. And based on that, I expect that the next month inflation will go down. And if it does, it will go down. And I believe by the end of December, we should be able to achieve that. But as I've said, even though I still maintain the target of 11.9, I said again in the speech that I expect that we will be achieving our target ahead of schedule.
Okay. We'll come back and hold. And this year, you want to read the budget in October, I believe. So we'll get
looking at October ending.
October ending, okay. And if that happens, okay. If that happens, to be the earliest, the budget for the next year have been read in the previous year.
I believe we should give the MPs enough time for them to peruse the document and appreciate it and debate it well. And so I'm looking at October ending so they can have 2 good months to be.
What's the story behind the interest rates decline?
I think it comes back to the fiscal management. It comes back. So clearly it's demand and supply. If you want to borrow more, you will jack up the rates because you become desperate and you accept everything. Now it's not the story is not the same. If I go to the market and I do not have the need, I cut. And I've built enough buffers in my sinking fund. If the rates are not good enough, I will not take it. I do not mind whether I get uncovered auction or not because I've built buffers. Because in the end, I want to move away from that high rate because it doesn't benefit anyone. As long as I'm not spending, why am I borrowing? There may not be the need for me to borrow. And so on the basis of that, I'm not spending as much as I should or people expect me to spend because I do not have the need to spend on those things. For example, why should I spend unnecessary if there's no need? Why should I? I will not. Last year, between January to December, they were taking everything. They go to the market and they have whatever amount they get, they take. I don't want to have that kind of.
But they were in need.
They were in need because they want to spend, and they were just spending recklessly. They were spending recklessly because if you are spending recklessly, you take any money. And that's what they were doing. It doesn't matter the rate. To them, the rate doesn't matter. As long as you are giving the money, they take it and they celebrate because they have. They throw KK party every time they borrow. We are not doing that. You're
driving down the rates at a very alarming, aggressive rate. Because in 6 months, you've dropped down, let's say all together, 91, 182 a year T-bill, around 30%. You've dropped it down to 14. I mean, the lowest now for 91 day.
Evans, this rate came down 2 months in office, and we've sustained it since. The first 2 months in office between January, February, and March, by the time we were reading the first budget in March, we had already brought down this rate, and then we have sustained it since. And that's the story I want Ghanaians to understand. When I brought it down, people felt that, oh, it can't be sustained. It's been how many months since? We have sustained it, and even driving it down even more.
So from where you sit, it's going to go down further?
Oh, yes, because now inflation is doing 13.7. Inflation doing 13.7, nobody knows what will happen in the next 2 months. I believe that inflation will hit its target ahead of schedule. So, for example, by the end of third quarter, let's say September, if I'm able to hit my target of 11, there's no reason why the T-bill rate should be...
And that's the graph here showing that the trend. And this is very...
around 30%, and look at where we are in 50.
That's a very steep drop.
Yes. Almost about...
Indeed.
50% drop.
And it's simply because government is not borrowing as much as...
They're not borrowing as much as...
How are you taming your appetite?
The discipline. It comes back to fiscal discipline. If I don't need the money, why do I go for it? Why should I borrow and the money will be sitting down?
It's not an election yet. They had an election year to do it.
It doesn't mean because of election you should destroy the country. After spending so much recklessly, where are they? They lost the elections. So spending doesn't necessarily mean you are going to win elections. It's about what you spend the money on. It's about what you spend the money on. The quality spending we are talking about. Are you spending on healthcare? Are you spending on education? Are you spending on agriculture? Are you spending on the right infrastructure to spur the economic growth? That is the kind of spending we are talking about. So it's not just spending. It's not that I borrow and come and call you the Evans, have some money, bring contract and let me pay you. Regardless, that is not the kind of spending we want.
Okay. And let's look now at the international reserves, which I mentioned to you earlier. In fact, you acknowledge it, that you have built it now to 4.8 months of import cover.
8.8.
Yes, billion. And this is what you met, correct?
Yes.
As at the end of June 2025, compared to 8.93 billion, 4 months of import cover, as at the end of 2024. I mean, I asked you that earlier, but I need to repeat that. Considering the crisis they faced, if they left you that definitely is something to acknowledge.
Evans, from 2022 to 2025 January, you left 8.9. I've been in office for 6 months. I've added 2.2 billion. In 6 months.
But you've not had COVID.
What are we talking about? No, COVID is after 2022. So what are we talking about? After the 2022 crisis, you've only been able to build 8.9 billion. I've used the last 6 months and I've accumulated $2 billion US.
How did you accumulate it?
Okay, that's the question. So I've been able to accumulate that through the gold board, for example, bringing in enough forex to be able to accumulate such. And we've seen cocoa board also doing well, and limited imports. We're also seeing limited imports. And so that is the kind, we've seen the trade balance doing well. We've seen a surplus, and a very good surplus of about 300% increase. And when you go into the slide, I have the numbers there.
So primarily because of gold board?
Yes, gold board is the biggest of all.
Okay.
It's the biggest of all. Because gold board, for example, last year under the MPP, the first 6 months of the year, they were, under the MPP, they brought in about 2 billion. And then under the NDC, in the last 6 months, we brought about 5.1 billion. So you could see the change alone from the gold board angle.
How much of what we're seeing now is also attributed to their policy of the BOG buying from the big mining players?
So BOG buys gold and keep the gold. It's different from buying the gold, exporting the gold, and bringing the forex.
Yes, because we need the gold.
It is two different. I hear people comparing these two policies, but they are two different policies. It doesn't mean the same.
But we need the gold to buy oil.
One uses local currency to buy the gold and keep the gold in its votes. We buy the gold, sell the gold, and bring the forex to accumulate reserves.
But you know, the impact should be the same, because the BOG keeps the gold and then ultimately buys oil with it. Oil that would have bought with forex. So then that lessons you keep, the forex that you have, you keep.
I'm not aware that there was a direct barter.
Okay.
I'm not aware. There was no direct barter.
What about the gold for oil?
It didn't work. It didn't work properly. Bank of Ghana were largely paying the suppliers of those crude oil and petroleum product cash.
Still?
Yes, that was what they were doing. They never paid them with gold. Never. Never.
You found this out for a fact?
I'm speaking to you as the Minister for
Finance, of course. But they had a whole policy running called Gold for Oil.
But I'm telling you, there was nothing gold going out and bringing oil in. They were actually, someone somewhere, sitting somewhere in the Emirates was supplying the, the bulk oil distribution company. And then the bulk oil distribution, the BOG will be paying. They give the Cedi to BOG and BOG pays the dollars. That's it.
So BOG was
pure trade, nothing more than what they were touting. Nothing. It was far from what they were touting. There was nothing, there was no barter where gold was going to change for oil. No, nothing of the sort happened.
But you were in this country at the time, you were the minority leader when the former vice president.
Yes.
So the reason why they had some stability towards, I think, the early part of last year, towards the end, was because of the gold for oil. In fact, the point was that the depreciation would have been worse had it not been for gold for oil.
I'm telling you for a fact, there was no barter. There was no barter.
So what did they do with the gold that they bought back?
Well, they were keeping the gold.
You've met them?
Oh, yes. I asked. They were keeping some gold. You could see that their gold reserves increased. That was a fact. That was a fact. It increased. They were keeping the gold that they were buying. The central bank was buying gold. They call it gold for reserves. Yes, that's what they were doing. There was no real barter. Nothing of the sort happened.
Okay. That obviously something that I'm pretty sure in the coming days we'll hear your colleagues on the other side.
Oh, yes.
Give us
and I will expect them to challenge me.
Okay. Let's talk about one of the big ones, the Cedi. The Cedi's appreciation against the major trading currencies. And we'll come to the specifics. But you mentioned here that at the end of June, the Cedi appreciated by 42.6% against the US dollar, 30.3% against the British pound, and 25.6% against the euro. So all major trading currencies, again, linked back to gold board.
That is why the Cedi was adjourned the best performing currency in the world in the month of April.
But the IMF says in the first quarter of the year, the central bank intervened quite significantly. 1.4 billion.
So first of all, let me put this in perspective. After intervening, central bank still accumulated $2.2 billion in reserves. Under the IMF program, the central bank was supposed to accumulate reserves, additional reserves, $453 million US. They've accumulated almost $2 billion. And so what are we talking about? In fact, I combed through the IMF staff report and I did not see any attribution to what they claimed the IMF had said it. I did not see any attribution. And so where is this coming from? I've not seen any attribution from the staff report, from the MEFB.
You mean the reference to the 1.4 billion?
Where the IMF warned that the central bank is overly intervening in the market. Supposedly, that is what is being made to believe. But that's not the case. That's not the case. The IMF never said that.
What I read was the IMF stated the facts.
Exactly.
About how much the BOG had spent as far as forex to intervene in the market of 1.4 billion. But of course, I mean, people see that to say, okay, so then maybe this is the Cedi.
But we have enough. Maybe without it intervening, they would have built 6 months of import cover. So they felt under the IMF program, you are supposed to build buffers up to 3 months of import cover.
The question,
we have 4.8. By the end of the year, we'll be hitting 5 month plus. We'll be hitting 5 month plus. The central bank should be able to intervene. And you recall, and I said this, and I'm repeating, that the essence of the Ghana Gold Board is for them to be able to buy the gold, export the gold, bring in the foreign currency to support the central bank for the central bank to be able to build reserves, and where possible, the central bank should be able to intervene when the need arises. And they are performing their mandate. The central bank is performing their mandate.
So for us, you have enough.
As long as you have enough reserves.
Enough.
As long as you have enough reserves. As I'm speaking, we are not burning reserves. We have 4.8 months of import cover. You know, by the end of the year, we'll be exceeding 5 months of import cover.
You know this country is very susceptible to global shocks. Are we building a buffer for that?
And the buffer is what I'm talking about. 4 months of import cover is a good buffer. 4 months of import cover, I repeat, is a good buffer. And I believe by the end of the month, if 6 months we've been able to accumulate 2 billion in excess of additional reserves, another 6 months we'll be able to do more. And that will shoot us. If 6 months we've been able to add 0.8 months of import cover, another 6 months we'll be able to add another 0.8 months of import cover. That give and take will be 5.6 months of import cover. The first time for a very long time that Ghana has been able to do that. And I can say without mincing word that the central bank is doing what they have to do.
And you made a point that this, obviously, there's still a long road to go. You made a point already that you're not resting on your oars yet. Now, there's a few things that we're going to be focusing on. Let's start with the gold board. We talked about that already. The government committed to implement the following measures, which you have done. We talk about the 24-hour economy. You want to state emphatically that these deliberate policies announced in the 2025 budget to stabilize the Ghana Cedi are yielding massive results. And I'm pretty sure you've heard. The accusation is that, in fact, it was Bamiyan who said that the stability of the Cedi, you should name one real policy that you've introduced that led to that. Of course, you've already here mentioned the gold board. But there's also a lot of international happenings on the global scene that he says have contributed. Of course, Trump's, tariff policies have contributed, the weakening of the dollar, etc. How was your reaction to that when you heard Dr. Bamiyan make the point?
So first of all, let me name one policy. Number one, they were indisciplined. We are disciplined. That is the bottom line. They were spending recklessly when the central bank was printing money as if there was no tomorrow. At one point, they printed until inflation reached 54%. You know when that happens? When that happens, you deplete your reserves. It is not happening now. The central bank is not printing. The government of Ghana has been disciplined. The fiscal consolidation is happening. So why won't you build reserves? Why won't you build reserves? So first of all, I also want to make this point to him. If, for example, he knows that he could do this, why didn't he do it during the 8 years of office? He was there as vice president and chairman of the economic management team.
He wasn't the boss.
He was the chairman of the economic management team. Remember, he touted himself. He touted himself as the Messiah. He's always been touting himself as the Messiah. And he said he was going to fix it. 8 years in office. Why couldn't he do what we are doing? 8 years in office. There was a time he said that he has arrested the Cedi. Why couldn't he do it?
Have you arrested the Cedi?
Well, I can't say I've arrested the Cedi.
Well, this is the evidence. I can say
that I've arrested the Cedi.
This is the evidence.
I can say that the Cedi has appreciated. That is what I can say.
Why are you running away from making the point?
No, because I'm not a policeman.
But
I'm not a policeman.
But this is the evidence. The evidence on the screen shows a historic appreciation of the Cedi. I mean, looking at where it is, it's sort of climbed 42.7, 42.6%. And if you look at where we're coming from and that steep climb there, the evidence is there, but you still don't want to say it because...
Well, let me say that. I'm focused. I'm very focused. We want to ensure that we'll end the year with the same level of appreciation. We want to make sure that this level of appreciation and the stability we are seeing is sustained. That is where my focus is. I'm not going to start calling names and maybe ask that Ghanaians should clap for me. That's not what I'm saying. I believe that we've made some considerable progress, in fact, significant progress. But this is not where we want to be.
Where do you want to be?
This is not where we want to be. We want the economy to recover. We want the economy to recover by creating sustainable jobs for the Ghanaian youth that are looking for jobs. We want to attract private capital into our economy to help create jobs. We want to see inclusive growth. This is not where we want to be. It's just the beginning. It has only been 6 months of hard work and action. We want this foundation to be cemented properly for us to take off properly by 2026. And that is where we are going. And we will not relent. We are going there and we want to go there. And until then, we are not relaxing.
So there's something you just said that the takeoff in 2026. So that's the ultimate objective.
That's the ultimate objective.
So you want to use this year?
We are using this year to recover properly, to recover the economy and take off from proper inclusive growth from 2026.
Okay. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, we'll sit down and expand a bit more. There's a lot to look at. And this lady on the screen here, and this deliberately was spoken. This struck me, but this was on a lighter note. You were picked. This is the MPP song we are trying to use here.
The lady was singing. I'm sure the lady is an MPP supporter, singing that the city has Cedi not picky.
So this is you pulling the MPP's legs?
No, just telling them that the city is doing well, in their own words.
There are a few things we're going to be interrogating when we return. The infrastructure investment that he announced, they have identified 166 constituencies that the finance minister says government is going to be putting a lot of resources in there to build 10 kilometers of road, I believe, over the next 3 years. Cumulatively, 5,000 kilometers of roads that they want to build and invest in. And then there's a very interesting thing about the exchange rate. So now there's a directive that regardless of the contract source, it's not going to be pegged in dollar anymore. It's going to be in cedis. And that is something that was announced today. And then the VAT reforms. And I know many of you are curious to know what he said about that. I would interrogate him a bit on that particular point when we return from this particular break. And then there's a big item around the validation, the salaries and ghost names that have been found. But also, he was criticized about the issue about arrears. It was on this show that he showed us a graph and talked about the arrears that he had met, that a lot of them did not, there was no payment provision made for them. They've been auditing that with some interesting findings that was in the mid-year budget. When we return, we'll interrogate those. Stay with me. Thanks for staying with us here on PM Express. My guest still with me is the finance minister. And as you know, PM Express is always brought to you by Syntex Tanks. It's also brought to you by Pepsodent Cavity Fighter and also by Academic Times newspaper. If you're looking for a tank that indeed will store water, you have to look for the tank with the tortoise on it. If it hasn't got the tortoise on it, then you know that you don't have the right tank. You want to call them across the country. I'll be sharing a number with you for you to dial. They also have 400 agents across the country that you can look for them and get your tank. So watch out for the Syntex tanks. And Dr. Ato Forson is still my guest in the studio the evening after the morning when he delivered the, well, it's afternoon really, because this was way after 1 p.m. when he delivered the mid-year budget review. The biggest item for me in this was a big push. The big push has been touted when you were in opposition, campaigning to come into power as your flagship policy in terms of investment, in terms of prioritizing. And then you read your 2025 budget, and we saw how much you allocated to it, and it raised a few eyebrows. Do they really know what you're doing? In this mid-year budget, you're giving it a bit more specifics. You say a few things. The next 2 years, everything that you're going to be making, as far as the oil and gas revenues are concerned, you're going to be focused exclusively on roads. Why?
Not only oil, but royalties as well.
Okay.
Okay, so let me put it.
So extractives.
Extractives. Finite revenue. Evans, first of all, oil revenue in the past has been used very thinly. Apart from the Atuabo gas processing plant under Professor Mills, John Mahama, you cannot pinpoint any significant investment that we've used the oil revenue for since 2011. And that is a worry. And so His Excellency President Mahama took a deliberate decision to ring-fence the oil revenue for specific infrastructure development. Aside, until 2019, when the previous MPP administration announced a Japan mineral royalties, you recall?
Yes.
All royalties were going to the budget to support the budget as revenue. After 2019, they transferred all mineral royalties to a new agency called MIF, Mineral Income and Investment Fund. The intention was for them to invest. We've all seen how MIF misused that particular government public funds, let me call it public funds. President Mahama again took a decision to bring back the royalties to the budget, but this time ring-fencing it as part of the big push. So you'll notice that in the 2025 budget, the allocation from these two sources amounting to 13.8 billion, say 14 billion, because we are seeing some overperformance.
And this is Cedis?
Cedis, 14 billion Cedis. And what we've said is that that will be also used for infrastructure, same big push. Now, I'm seeing a trend. And from what we are putting in place, I believe by November I should be able to update the state that the overall revenue, not oil, non-oil revenue will be doing well. I expect at least additional 10 to 20 billion. If it does happen, that 10 to 20 billion, equivalent to $2 billion, will be used to support the big push.
So wait, that is not coming from extractives?
That's not coming from extractives. So, outside extractives, any additional revenue outside what we have projected will go and add to the big push.
But that wasn't in your media budget review today?
Because I've not realized it. You remember, I'm going to Parliament again in October, and I'm still monitoring, and I've not allocated it yet. But I'm trying to say that based on the policies I've put in place and the work we are doing, I can see clearly that by the end of the year, I will exceed, the GRA will exceed the 190 billion.
And all that will go to big push?
And if they are able to achieve that, all of that will go to the big push. And I say this for a reason. In the last few months, we are seeing an upsurge in terms of demonstrations and radio talks against bad roads in this country. Evans, our roads are simply bad. Our road infrastructure is despicable, so to say. It's bad. We need to fix our roads. The Chinese say that if you want to get rich, build roads first. Our roads need to improve. So His Excellency the President has said that he's using the next 2 years to improve our road infrastructure.
But is 2 years adequate? Consider the length of time it takes for these.
And that's why we are awarding it now. We are awarding it now. We are starting work now. So 2 years, maybe it can go to 2.5 years. But at least by 2 years, we should be able to see some significant change. And the big push is targeting the national roads, the main corridors, in the length and breadth of this country. So almost every region is part of it. So these are the national roads that we are talking about. We are building a bridge across the Oti River in Dambai, for example. We are doing feasibility studies to construct a new corridor, a new alignment, Accra-Kumasi Expressway. We are doing another feasibility to put a bridge on the Afram Prince, Echi Adoso, Echi Amanfum Bridge, for example. These are national roads. These roads are needed to open up the country for economic growth. For us to be able to build a country, for example, if we're able to do the Accra Outer Ring Road, some call it the Accra Orbital. If we're able to do it, and you are coming all the way from Central Region, and we are going to Volta Region, you may not need to go through Accra City. You may exit somewhere after Winneba and be able to connect after, say, Michel Camp. Why do we not have to invest in road infrastructure? And it is so critical that we build and spend some time and invest in road infrastructure to open up the country.
I mean, I have an interest in one of the roads, the dualizing the Denta Dudowa road. That's my stretch. I see that work is happening on the stretch. I get a sense that they have resources already.
Yes. So some of the contracts we inherited, some of the projects we inherited, like, for example, the road leading to Ofankor towards, I've forgotten the name of the...
yeah, is it the Sawam? Yeah.
For example, the previous administration took a loan of $750 million US from Afri-Exim Bank. And they said they were going to use that to fix the road. They paid about 100 and something million to the contractor. The contract, that particular contract was about $336 million. And they paid only about $100 million. And the money is finished.
Okay.
Completely finished. It's not, the money is not sitting down. It's not there as I speak. There's no money. And another one is the Swami interchange.
So what happened to the money? Because if it was budgeted
they spent it.
On, do we know?
On other things. They spent it on other things, not the reason why they took the loan. They took the loan specifically, you can check from Parliamentary Hansard, specifically for these roads. But they did not use it for these same roads.
In 6 months, have you figured out what they use the money for?
Well, I'm not interested in going into the detail like what they use the money for. The truth is that it's not there. I just want to focus on the job and fix the situation. The situation as we inherited. So the contractor, you could see that the contractor, others are, you saw the demonstration on that road and all. Yeah. Now it's a liability on us. It's a responsibility on President Mahama to fix it. So President Mahama has lifted this project in particular to be part of the big push. And the contractor has since been paid. And so activities will begin.
But I need to ask you, but if some reason you can't account for the budgeted amount, certainly before you spend more, you must audit and account for
Some form of audit is ongoing, but I don't want to go there now. That's not the reason why I'm here. When it's done at the right time, I'll come and speak to it.
Okay, so you're spending on these roads, Kumasi Expressway.
Yes, Accra Kumasi Expressway.
Accra Kumasi, is it going to be PPP?
Okay, so we have not awarded a contract yet. Okay. The engineers are on the road doing the feasibility studies. We are looking at viability, the cost and all. And we expect to finish the feasibility in September. And when that is done, we will take a decision and inform the public.
Okay. What was the total?
Excellency, the President is particularly interested in that road. And he wants that road fixed.
And then you also told us about 166 constituencies.
Yes.
In dire need of road infrastructure.
Exactly.
Is that different from?
It's different from the big push.
So this is independent of the big push?
It's independent of the big push. And that one we are using the road fund to fix it.
Okay.
We're using the road fund to fix it.
And you say you want to do 5,000 kilometers?
In 3 years.
In 3 years.
So that's 30 kilometers times 166. 30 kilometers for 166 constituencies. 10 kilometers every year for 3 years. That gives you 30 kilometers times 166. It gives you about 4,980 kilometers.
Do you have any clarity on how the 166 constituencies were selected?
Okay, so the Minister for Road, and I said in the speech, he has been touring the country in the last 6 months with his technical team. And he came with a report that obviously you have some constituencies that are quite urbanized, some constituencies that are endowed with road infrastructure, and some constituencies that need road infrastructure so badly. And so he classified them. And according to the Minister for Roads, 166 constituencies require major upgrade of road infrastructure. And that he's going to use the road fund, and I'm sure you may have heard him. He has reorganized the road fund, and he's sending a new bill to Parliament. The bill was laid before Parliament today, Road Maintenance Trust Fund. And there will be other sources of funding, and he's going to use that to fund the 166 constituencies, 10 kilometers every year for the next 3 years to uplift those constituencies.
So this is a whole restructuring of the road fund?
Exactly.
Why though? Why are you repurposing it for?
Well, the current legislation is quite outdated. It's not strong enough to be able to perform the mandate that he believes will have to be performed. For example, he believes that the governance structure must be improved. He also believes that the accountability and transparency architecture in the road fund law needs to be enhanced, and many others. And so the bill has just been presented to Parliament. In the coming days, we'll consider that bill, and I'm sure it will be quite topical for all of us to discuss.
In the past, part of the road fund has been collateralized for a lot of things.
Exactly.
How will this fix it?
No, he's not using this for. He's not going to collateralize this. He will use this and award contract and fix it. 10 kilometers every year. For this one,
and I want to, on the screens, if you can see, they will project it up for the roads that will be benefiting from the big push.
These are the projects that are going through feasibility studies.
Okay.
This
right, that's Accra-Kumasi Expressway. Yes, but once you figure it out, it will come under big push.
It will come under big push.
And then you have the full list of the, I'm going to go back to that, where you'd sort of list all the roads that will be benefiting from this.
Exactly.
Here you are. So the rehabilitation, upgrading of the Kaswa, Winneba Road, rehabilitation of the Fankor, Sawam Road, dualization of Takrady Agona Junction Road. And this is across the country. How many are we talking about?
Oh, it's about 46 different lots, almost about 50 lots.
Okay. That you are investing in to try and address. There's one key issue around still roads, but it has to do with arrears. Yes. And I recall when you were here the last time, that stirred a bit of controversy. The minority side challenged you on that. You claim you met arrears of about 60 billion.
68.7 billion cedis.
Yes. I remember that you said you were going to audit.
Yes, and the audit is ongoing. And today I reported on the audit.
And you told Parliament today that in the audit you have found a few things.
Yes.
And just to summarize some of the things you said you found, you say that some of the contracts that were signed, you are actually rejecting some of the, about 3 billion.
3.5 billion cedis.
Why?
I'm not the one rejecting it. It's the Auditor General rejecting them. The Auditor General believes that he's seen recycled invoices that should not be paid. He's seen some that do not go through, do not have proper documentation, for example, PPA documentation and all, and the circumstances in which they were awarded were questionable and all. As I said, the audit is about 87% complete. And again, the Auditor General has indicated to me that by the end of next month, he will be submitting the final report. And so it was necessary that I provide an update. And so I had to provide some update based on the information that the Auditor General has given to me. And the audit is a joint audit done by the Audit Service together with EY and PwC. Let's wait for the audit so that we can discuss the specifics. But from what I've been briefed, the story is not good.
The minority cites the recent IMF report, and they make the point that the preliminary audits suggest that a lot of the amount that was put out, the 68 billion, was based on payables that may not be supported by valid documentation.
So the Auditor General said only 52 million, 528 million are the ones that are not supported by valid.
Okay, so now that has been determined.
So it has been determined.
568
million.
Okay.
So out of 68.7 billion, 68.7 billion, 528 million is not supported by documentation. So what are we talking about? In terms of percentages, it's little. They indeed accumulated so much arrears. So as I'm saying, we'll have to wait for the Auditor General to submit the final documentation. Since it's Auditor General to go to Parliament for
what do you plan to do at the back of the audit report once you have the full facts?
Okay. I want to, first of all, validate this claim and to make sure that they are legitimate before I can commit public funds to pay. First. Because this is public resources. And as a custodian of public funds, you should make sure that whatever you pay for, you can defend it any day, anytime. And so I have to do that. Number two, I will have to understand the true situation and plan to pay over a period of time. For example, this year I've planned to pay 13 billion of the arrears. Suffice that they have validated X, and the Auditor General has so far validated 23 billion. I've paid 5 billion out of the 23 that he has already validated. Because when he validated, they send it to me for payment Okay? And so, on the back of that, if, for example, it's confirmed that, for example, 45 billion of the arrest is legitimate, I have to plan to pay over a period of time in the medium term. I can't pay all in 1 year. So I may have to pay over 3 or 4 years, and I have to announce and let the owners or the owners of those IPCs be aware that this will be paid over a period of time. Simple. And that is why you need the audit. Okay.
3.6 billion, you said you've already rejected.
Correct.
You are opening yourself up for suits.
No, but I'm not the one who rejected it.
The Auditor General did. Yeah, but of course, if the liability comes, it's a state that...
But that is the work of the Auditor General. And the Auditor General will not just come out to say that I've rejected 3.6 billion. There may be legitimate reasons why.
Let's talk about the VAT reforms, the other big one. In there is the COVID levy. The COVID levy, we're told, was going to be abolished. It's still on the books, and many were looking forward to the mid-year budget review, announcing that, yeah, you've abolished it. Still in there. Now you're telling us later in the year, October, when you come with the 2026 budget, you are setting the broad reforms would happen, which would take out the COVID levy. Why not now?
Okay. So,
why still defer?
So, Evans, first of all, you recall that as part of the 2025 budget in March, I indicated that government intends to review the VAT Act, and the parameters will include the abolition of the COVID levy, and that should be done by the end of the year. I did not mince words, because I was aware of the magnitude of work we needed to do. Our current VAT structure has completely been distorted. It is the only VAT structure that combines VAT and sales tax. I've never seen one. I've never seen one as a tax professional. I've never seen one. Yet, the previous administration was happy with it and they were implementing it. It was completely distorted. We needed to work with the IMF because we are in an IMF program. So we had to seek for technical assistance for us together go on that route. That has been done. So we have sealed it. We have an agreement on what we have to do. Aside the IMF, you have the trading community and the business community that you have to engage. I don't want to introduce something for them to say that you did not engage us. I need 1 or 2 months to be able to do that. We've started engagement. We intend to complete the engagement by September. After the engagement, we'll have to rewrite a new VAT legislation. So granted, I will finish the engagement in August. We'll have to use all of September to be able to finish proper legislation. I mean, the legislation will take between 4 to 6 weeks. When that is done, it will be part of the budget that will be submitted to Parliament by end of October for approval. And it's part of the reason why we want to bring the budget forward, for us to be able to not just pass the budget, but to be able to consider all these important legislations that will be going to Parliament.
But you're going to do a few things. You've told us today that...
I said at the minimum.
At the minimum. So we're going to see effective VAT rate reduced.
Correct.
The punitive cascading effect of Get Fund and NHS levies will be removed. The VAT flat rates will be removed. Unified VAT rate will be implemented. VAT registration threshold will be increased to exempt small and micro business. This is at the same time, you having said a short while ago that you want to raise revenue and improve. How do you raise that revenue when you are actually putting in place measures in the VAT reforms that may have to reduce the revenues that you already get from VAT?
If you look at what I have written under, so compliance will be improved through public education, awareness creation and introduction of fiscal electronic devices. This in itself is a major compliance tool that we will deploy. We believe by implementing this, it will be revenue neutral.
But in real terms, at least, you have a reduction in revenues from this.
No, the compliance measures we are going to put in place will actually enhance those revenue, and it will be revenue neutral, if not revenue positive. And I strongly believe in that. Evans, there's something in economics we call the Laffer curve. When the rate of tax reaches a certain high level, compliance reduces, so the tax you collect goes down. That is where we are with the VAT. Ghana's effective VAT rate currently is 21.9, call it 22%. It's the highest in the entire Africa. It is leading to compliance.
What will be the effective VAT rate once you finish this?
So based on what we have here, the effective VAT rate currently is 21.9. But even at the minimum, as I'm talking about, based on what I've lined here, will mean the effective VAT rate will be 20%.
20%?
Yes. So that alone will mean that you have shed off 2% on average. 2%. And
but is that ambitious enough? Because
oh, yes, but it's a good point to start with. We are moving from 22 to 21, to 20, 2%. And as and when it improves, then you can look at what you have to do. You don't want to start from 10 and erode your revenue base. You have to start gradually and correct the distortions. And so this is the minimum. We are going around the country. We are soliciting ideas. We are speaking to the business community to hear. Sometimes you never know who will bring you the best idea. So we are engaging and we believe that we'll be able to complete the process.
One of the reasons it has been stated, but some economists actually have made the point that you have achieved all the highs you have with the Cedi stability, is because in the last 6 months you failed to spend. Today you actually said that you spent 114 billion.
Yes.
On what?
So I showed some of the things I've spent on. So contrary to the impression that has been created that Ato is not spending, the government is not spending, it's simply not true. We are spending at the right places and spending prudently. That is what we are doing. We are spending. Have you heard of any noise from free SHS? Have you? Have you heard noise coming from National Health Insurance service providers? Have you heard teachers complaining about capitation grant? Have you heard school feeding complaining? No. Something is happening. There's a silent revolution going on. Something clear is happening. We are spending right. So I was baffled, but I knew I would have this day to be able to explain to the people of Ghana that we are spending. Government is indeed spending.
So you say you spent 700 million
to pay Eurobond
obligations.
Yes, obligations.
So you didn't have a choice in there. An amount of 10 billion the domestic bond holders paid. An amount of 2.9 billion on the District Assembly's Common Fund. But that delayed quite significantly.
No, it hasn't delayed. It hasn't delayed. I've paid first quarter, I've paid second quarter. The law says pay quarter in arrears. Quarter in arrears. First quarter, second quarter. Second quarter ended in June. And I've paid already. 2 quarters paid, has not delayed. Social Security National Insurance Trust, I've paid 2.7 billion cedis to SNIT for your pension. I've paid. We have paid 9.1 billion cedis to the energy sector for stable power supply. 9.1 billion. That's how much we've spent. We spent 5 billion to pay arrests. We've paid Get Fund 4.6 billion cedis. Of this amount, they've spent 1 billion Ghana cedis on free secondary education program. And as I'm saying, National Health Insurance, we've paid them 4.6 billion cedis. National Health Insurance, as at today, we've paid 4.6 billion cedis. So we are spending at the right places. We spent 1.4 billion Ghana cedis for National Health Insurance claims. We have paid 252 million Ghana cedis for vaccines and essential medicines. And I've seen UNICEF issuing a statement. Have you seen that statement?
No.
UNICEF issued a statement. So I'll put on my phone and I'll show you. They issued a statement commending government for the first time seeing some payment for this critical medicine. I did not issue a statement. I'll show you. We are paying. And that's why I said there's some silent revolution going on. Maybe I've heard MPP complain that we are not paying. Maybe it is not flowing to their direction, and that's why they are crying. But that is not the case. Government is paying. We've paid 462.6 million Ghana cedis as nursing training allowances. We have paid 25 million to the assembly members as their first quarter allowance. We've paid 21 million to begin the national apprenticeship program. We are paying. We are spending. I've spent non-interest expenditure alone is 89 billion cedis. 89 billion cedis. Interest expenditure over 25 billion. So government of Ghana is spending.
So you're saying you're current on all these?
Well, we are very current. And these numbers, I'm telling you, are up to date. And Evans, the MPP is used to spending what they do not have. So you don't have the revenue. but they were just spending. So they expect that everybody should come and spend. They were living large. They were, living a champagne lifestyle on an appetition budget. So if you live such a lifestyle, and somebody comes in and the person is becoming very prudent, you'll be worried. And that's why they are complaining. That's why they are complaining. They expect us to spend as if there's no tomorrow. We don't do that. That's not our training. You spend within your means. You spend within your means. What we have is what we are spending, and we are spending rightly.
But we've heard some of the labor unions agitate. We've heard, for example, the nurses recently agitated over time that
we should just award condition of service.
Yes.
Because somebody has
signed it.
It was signed under MPP. They didn't pay over 1 year, and another government has come within 2 months. They expect us to pay. Is this fair enough? No, but after 1 year. So why didn't they pay 1 year? If they could pay 1 whole year, they were in office. They never, after signing, they did not pay.
But government is a continuum.
But 1 year they did not pay. So why don't you gave them 1 year, but you are failing to give this government 1 month? It raises questions.
You told that to the nurses? Because the nurses were asking.
It raises questions. So we said that, well, let's look at what they have. The Minister for Health is engaging them. I'm not the one engaging them directly. The Minister for Health is engaging them. He's engaging them together with the Minister of Employment. I'm yet to be briefed as what they have agreed on. I'll wait on that. But let me say that. Then this is spending. Already, this year, we have exceeded our wage budget by 1.34 billion Ghana cedis.
And you say it's because of the last-minute
recruitment. The previous administration recruited a lot of people in the last quarter of 2024 into the payroll. And as a result, some of them, in some cases, we were told that they were recruiting 1,000. But actually, the number of people that went to the payroll is 2 times that amount. And they've all gone to the payroll.
But you've also recruited.
You can't. No, we have not done any major recruitment since we came to office. We have not. We haven't. You need to assess the situation first.
I had the defense minister at the press conference.
That he intends to recruit, has not done that.
You have the money?
So I'm saying that I want to do the payroll audit. And after the payroll audit, I've announced some numbers. I'm waiting for the Auditor General to complete the payroll audit. I believe we can make some savings before I can give them the go-ahead to recruit.
Another big...
And we will actually budget it as part of the 2026 budget.
For the recruitments to happen.
Another
big announcement today is that the contracts, road contracts, whatever the contracts and its source, will be now in Ghana Cedi.
Correct. That is the directive from His Excellency the President.
What's the purpose of that?
Why should we award contract, government award contract in Ghana cedis? So it means in US dollars or in foreign currency. So it means you yourself, you don't believe in yourself. If you are a government, I'm telling you, Evans, the service provider, that don't price in dollars. I'm telling you, Evans, that don't advertise in dollars. I'm saying to Joy FM, don't invoice anyone in dollars. But me, government, I'm awarding contract in US dollars. What is this? Who does that? So His Excellency the President has issued an executive order that beginning today, 24th of July, 2025, under his watch, no government agency should award a contract in US dollars, regardless of the source of income. Regardless of the source. And that is an executive order. And it's for the contractors to choose. If you're coming to work in my country, I will pay you in cedis. And if you are repatriating your profit, you can repatriate it in dollars. We'll make the foreign exchange available.
But that will put pressure indirectly.
Yes, no.
Put pressure on the
the central bank will get a currency, and they will be able to do that.
But they have a lot of money, and because repatriation will be one of the biggest challenges when it comes to depreciation.
Let me give you an example. MTN, isn't it a foreign company?
Yeah.
Are they pricing you in dollars?
No.
They are pricing you in cedis.
Yeah.
They send their dividend away, and the central bank gives them forex.
But
able to forex.
But you don't dispute that repatriation has been one of our biggest challenges when it comes to CD stability.
Oh, yes.
Now you're going to add one more block of businesses who now have to go and chase a dollar.
But the good news is that the forex that hitherto were being used to pay these contractors will go to the central bank. So the central bank will get the forex. So it's in and out. And central bank will, some of the forex that ideally would have ended up at the black market will now go to the central bank directly.
I mean, let me ask you this before I get the sense, you talked about at the beginning about the discipline that you are enforcing, which means that you your friends in government, cabinet ministers who would want money to spend, all have to come and comply with that discipline. You must be making a lot of enemies.
But let me say that my colleagues are very disciplined. It is not the Ministry of Finance only enforcing discipline. The enforcement is coming from His Excellency the President.
You have the backing of the President?
So the President himself is enforcing the discipline, and I have the full backing of the President to enforce the discipline. And the ministers themselves are all disciplined. We are staying within the budget.
You know, it's very easy to say when you are in your first 6 months. The closer you get to 2028, your discipline will be tested.
Let's get there for you to see whether we are disciplined.
And it begs the question.
But I can assure you, the NDC, President Mahama is determined. He will be disciplined. He will do what is required of him, and he will make sure that he takes this country from this terrible storm.
Dr. Ato Forson.
Thank you.
Grateful.
Thank you
That you join us.
Thanks. Nice to have. Nice to always.
And nice to have you on my show.
I always enjoy your engagement.
Yeah, nice to have you on the show. And that is the Finance Minister, Dr. Ato Forson, joining us here on PM Express. Enjoy the rest of the evening.